I speak today at Gangwa, the sacred ground of Korean history. This is where Dangun Wangum built the Chamsongdan and presided over the heavenly rituals to the universal God, the Hananim. From our national anthem, this Hananim is the Samsin Sanjanim. And now, I begin the third part. It is about opening the gates of heaven. Again, gates of heaven. What makes Chamsongdan so significant? Why is it so important in the history of human enlightenment? If you had climbed on top of it, you will notice that it has a Chonwon Jibang structure. It symbolizes the roundness of Father Heaven and the straightness of Mother Earth. Let us recite it. Chonwon Jibang. Chonjibumo.
To know the Chonwonjibang is to learn the idea of heaven and earth, the divine parents. Chonwon, or round heaven, is the heart of a father, the essence of his fatherhood and divineness of his life force. It shows that cosmic radiance is all-embracing and harmonious. The circle is the symbol. It is the shape representing truth. The round sky is the manifestation of the Father's heart, the divinity of Father Sky, the infinite cosmos under his aegis. It is a term that defines the essence of life. This takes us back to the earliest days of human history. Think about the circles that ancients carved into stones and ask yourselves, what were they thinking when they drew the circles? The square, for its part, also has great cultural significance. One such example was built by the Sumerians 5,000 years ago, the original inspiration for all pyramids. It is called the ziggurat, a huge square structure built entirely of brick with a temple on top. Why did the builders choose the shape of a square? I looked at the literature by eminent scholars on the topic for a few days, and all of them agreed that the square represents a stable form. It symbolizes the divinity and essence of earthly maternal energy. The concept of round sky and square earth forms a cultural essence. It is in the embodiment of a cultural spirit of ultimate enlightenment, which is achieved through worship of heaven and earth as divine parents, from whom come all life. Everything is imbued with their indispensable life force. The shape of the grounds is circular, but the altar itself is a square, meaning the life force of the Father forms the foundation underneath, while the essence of maternal life energy is turned into an altar and placed on top. In terms of the Book of Changes, this is represented by its 11th hexagram, Ji-Chonte, earth-heaven pervading. The hexagram for Ji-Chonte carries the meaning, the boundaries of eternal life shall be thrown wide open when the maternal life force is given the utmost respect. It signifies the cosmic spirit of eternal peace. It is also at the core of Eastern learning, or Donghak, that marks the start of Korea's modern era. Chonwon Jibang represents the eternal change to our world after the later Heaven Gaibyak, the state of true cosmic peace where every being in the universe lives in harmony with each other. A spirit of eternal peace that comes with later Heaven Gaibyak takes physical form as the altar atop Marisan in Ganhwa Island, right here, the Korean peninsula. We can almost feel the hopes for the unity of earth and heaven the first Danhun had, actualized in an altar representing earth-heaven pervading. The Samsin is a once formless, self-manifesting triune God who has assumed physical form. Yes, I said self-manifestation. He appeared by himself. This God, Heaven, said, "I am the God," and just appeared out of nowhere. That's not how it is in Western Christianity. There, Yahweh, the Creator, made a series of declarations. Let there be light, let the vault be sky, let dry ground appear, and let there be man. They are all His creations. Heaven and earth are things that were created. Such dichotomous, binary thinking cannot be found anywhere in the East. No saint, no philosopher, and no so-called wise man of the East ever said heaven, earth, and humanity are creations personally made by a divine being. It's only in a nomadic desert culture like Judea that such binary thinking can come about, a kind of thinking forced by an unforgiving, hostile environment. This nation has been holding heavenly rituals since the time of Hwanguk. There was Lord Hwanin long time ago who presided over heavenly rituals, meaning a priest ministering to the God of heaven. Records on the Baidal, which came next, says that Kubalhan, the first Hwanwung, designated the period of 3/7, that is, 21 days, as the number of days that he needed to instruct the people on rituals to the heavens. The people were taught the principles of heavenly rituals so that they would discipline themselves in accordance with the way of the perfection. They would become perfect beings, immortals of cosmic radiance. During Joseon, the first Dangun Wangum opened his dynasty by holding a heavenly ritual. The 16th Dangun, Wina, also held rites to heaven. Records also say that Gwanggaeto, the great king, rode to Ganghwa and climbed Marasan to where the Chamsongdan is and personally held rites to the Samsin Sanjinim. On top of Mount Tai in Shandong, China, is the Yuhongdian, where they worship the Samsin Sanjinim, who is wearing a gold robe, and golden cushions are on the floor. I actually went there once and bowed to the Samsin Sanjinim. The worship of the Samsin Sanjinim, God of heaven and creator, has been established as custom throughout our history of 9,000 years and has left its mark in Confucianism and the Taoism of Laozi and Zhuangzi. For example, the Chinese have divided the God of the universe into 8. The right to the 8 deities, the Bashan Jie, shows up in the records of the grand historian himself. But even the Bashan Jie has an origin. Where does it come from? None other than Korean custom of heavenly rites at Chamsongdan, says the Shinshi Bonggi. Amazing! The first of the 8 was the Lord of Heaven, then of Earth. They were worshipped together as parents in rites. Tai Gongjiang was the person who spread in China the notion of 8 deities, which was taken from our Singyo, the spirit teaching. Lord of Heaven appears in Matteo Ricci's 16th century Chinese text, Tianju Shiyi. Tianju, or Lord of Heaven, became Chanju Gyo, the term for Catholicism in Korea and East Asia. A great cultural legacy left by the first Dangun involves the question, why are we here? What is life's purpose? The answer is to become one heart with the Samsin, universal God and preserver of cosmic creation, transformation. But how can we unite our hearts with God's? In Buddhism, this is described as discovering one's Buddha nature. Christians explain it as being blessed and saved through the Son of God. Dangun Segi, the Chronicle of Dangun, tells us exactly what the heart of God looks like and is made of. It is a canon encompassing all ideas from the golden age of cosmic creation about humanity, theology, history, and cosmology. It also contains the spiritual discipline of God Himself and principles of divine governance, as well as methods of discipline for people to hone and perfect their true selves within, and important points of guidance for transmitting the essence of the ultimate spiritual discipline. That being said, Dangun Joseon also had a canon for Danguns, through which the way of kings or knowledge of kingship was transmitted, called Xinwang Zhongzhan. These are the words.
The way of gods, kings, teachers, and mentors. Dangun Garuk took the throne on the Gihe year. In the 5th month, the Dangun summoned the high priest Ulbaruk and inquired about the way of gods, kings, teachers, and mentors. Ulbaruk clasped his thumbs and folded his right hand above his left, performed a 3/6 grand bow, and spoke respectfully to Lord Dangun as follows. Speaking of God, everything was born from the harmonious energy of heaven and earth, and God assures that each creation maintains its essence. This is why all people in the realm rely on and place their trust in God. And kings ensure the safety of all beings in this world through governance founded on virtue and righteousness. This is why all subjects submit to every command that comes from the king. Teachers are instructors selected by the kingdom, whereas mentors are recommended by the people. Every 7 days, they go in front of the Samson and make their pledges. Those recommended by 3 townships become mentors, while those chosen from the entire 9 realms become teachers. Speaking of the way, those seeking to be fathers must truly become fathers. Those seeking to be kings must truly become kings. Those seeking to be teachers must truly become teachers. And likewise, sons, vassals, and students must assume the true attributes of sons, vassals, and students. The way of Shinshi, therefore, also provides instruction through God, teaching everyone to know themselves and stand on their own, emptying themselves while valuing others, thus allowing them to bless the human world. As kings rule the world in place of God, the Sangjenim in heaven, they must spread the way, far and wide, to benefit the people, and not allow people to lose the true selves they were born with. When one is ruling people in place of the Supreme King, one must free them from disease and also relieve them of their grievances, so that no living being will be harmed. A king must urge people to right their wicked hearts and seek truth, and have them observe the 21-day cycles, staying true to the discipline for the perfection of their being. Thus, the court will be full of proper teachings, while disciplined instructions will spread among people. The energies of the universe will pervade the entire realm of the Saman, and the 3 lights and 5 forces will congeal inside the heads of people, allowing them to see the deep and profound way, saving the world with the light of cosmic brilliance. Such is the spirit of the Kobalhan. Lord Dangun bestowed these teachings throughout the 9 realms, and all in the 9 realms became humble and reformed, returning to the one true heart of the Samson.
The way of Shinwang Zhongjong, simply put, is the grand canon of the art of kingship. It is a manual and textbook containing the essence of governance based on kingly virtues. This was the knowledge that Garuk, the 3rd Dangun, inquired from High Priest Yulbaruk. Yulbaruk performed the 3-6 grand bow and gave him counsel. He clasped his thumbs, placed the right hand over the left as he was bowing, a hand position known as Gyomu Gawusu. Surprisingly, this manner of showing respect actually made its way to the West. I'm guessing about 6,000 years ago. Those of you who have went to the Louvre would have seen the statue of Gudea, king of the Sumerian city-state of Lagash, from 4,100 years ago. His hand is in the same position. It is what the vassals and lords did when they came to show their respect to the Samson Sangjenim and the Son of Heaven in the east, in addition to the 3-6 grand bow. Let me summarize the Shinwang Zhongjong. It begins with, God draws everything forth. It means God draws all things to the world from the sea of creative transformation, the universe. This is such an awesome expression, and one of my favorites actually. We were the first human civilization, founded on a profound cosmology and philosophy of creation, the root culture of the 3 dynasties. What does this mean? God draws out things from the universe, like money from a bank. Things are drawn out from the ocean of universal harmony. It is a sea filled with one energy, where all physical forms exist. God and Ki, or cosmic energy, exists in unity. God exists both outside and within this ocean. This idea reappeared in early modern Korea in the Donghak phrase, "I wish for the ultimate ripening chi of autumn." Who is the master of this ultimate energy? The Lord of Heaven, who came as a human being, the Cheonju.
The same thing the Catholics were saying for 2,000 years, that the Father in heaven, the Lord God, entered the human world in this land of the East. This is the realization of the phrase, beseeching the ultimate energy to descend and take possession of me. This is the true philosophy of the universe, of creation, a product of 9,000 years of history and culture. Let us go back to the phrase, God bestows completeness on the nature of each being. Every person contains the true heart of God, and this is referred to as personality or true essence. God's role is to secure and perfect this essence. Let us also go over the part about kings. It is said that kings ensure the safety of the lives of all beings in this world through governance founded on virtue and righteousness. Next part is about teachers and instructors. It says teachers are selected by the kingdom, whereas instructors are those recommended by the people. The brilliant people who were potential leaders of the country were taught the way of teachers and mentors. People had no business being leaders if they were not acquainted with the way of cosmic radiance and the cosmology, humanism, theology, and history of the Shindo. This is the root of Hwarang culture of Shila. It would be good to remind ourselves of this once more here today. When we take another look at the civilizations on Earth, we come to the realization that Dangun Joseon is not a dynasty in some obscure eastern corner that began 4,000 years ago in myth and legend. The so-called nomadic cultures of northern Asia are all rooted in Dangun Joseon. I will explain all this by combining the things that I have seen and researched personally at various sites all over the globe, incredible things that I have seen in museums around the world, and tell you about artifacts and relics that are undeniable representations of Singyo and Samsin culture of the three ancient Korean dynasties, as well as their cosmology and worldview. The Dangun Joseon represents both the golden age and the culmination of the Singyo culture. During the reign of the third Dangun, Garuk, a provincial governor named Sakjong, was banished to Yaksu, or Amur River. He was later forgiven and became the ancestor of the people we call the Xiongnu. Osagu, the fourth Dangun, made his younger brother Osadol, Khan of Mongolia, the first king of Mongolia. A quick look at Western history shows us that in cultures including from Rome, Central Germany, Austria, France, and all the way up to Scandinavia, we can observe the historical influences of the Hyongno in Western culture, historical relics, customs, and even systems of governance. The Hyongno were divided into East and West 1,200 years ago, with the Eastern Hyongno became divided even further into North and South. The northern Hyongno suddenly disappeared into the steppes of Kazakhstan at about 2nd century CE, then reappeared in the 4th century in the frontiers of Europe and attacked the Alans and the Goths. The Goths, who were being pursued by the Huns, turned on the Germans, who saw no other alternative but to flee towards the Roman Empire. It set off a chain of events that destroyed Rome, and the classical West came to an end. The central figure in this was the much feared Attila. Several different descriptions of this feared conqueror all show him as an Eastern nomad. The very word Hun is actually a different phonetic version of the word Huan, the same Huan in Hwanguk, the first state in human history. Hun, Huan, O Huan, all are sounds that denote one thing, brightness. Aside from the Huns, we have the Sanbi, another tribe that split from Dangun Joseon. According to Ho Han Shu, Shanbi and Wu Huan are both descendants of Donghu, Donghu being another name for Dangun Joseon.
On the contrary, the Donghu were part of Burn Joseon, which formed the left of Donggun Joseon territory. The Donghu are our cousins culturally, sharing many traits, and once lived within the borders of Donggun Joseon. Then, around 2nd century CE, a figure named Don Seok-goi unified the Songbi and dominated Asia for a generation. Many prominent historical figures were Sonbi descendants, like the Tang founder Li Yuan and Yang Jian, or Emperor Wen of Sui. Needless to say, their mothers were Sonbi as well. The Sonbi were the ancestors of Sui and Tang founders, and under them was the Dogwall, Turks, who ruled Europe from 12th to 17th centuries. The Dogwall used their skills in iron making to establish the Göktürk Empire in the 6th century. They split into Eastern and Western Turks. Then they would recover and founded the Seljuk Empire in the 11th century. Dogwall is read Turk in the language of the region. Then, in the late 13th century, the famous Sultan Osman laid down the foundations of an empire, which eventually destroyed the Byzantine Empire. The young Sultan Mehmet, only 20 years old at the time, took down the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, renamed it Istanbul, and turned Hagia Sophia into a mosque. The Hagia Sophia is an amazing structure, held up without columns. It was built 1,500 years ago, and inside, on the ceiling, are swastikas, a cosmological symbol from the East. The Hagia Sophia stayed a mosque for the next several centuries before being converted into a museum. Genghis Khan, who founded the Mongol Empire in the 13th century, is a descendant of the Shilwi, or Shiwei, who also branched out from the Sonbi. The Mongol Empire reached its greatest extent during the reign of Kublai, the fifth great Khan, when it became the Yuan, and its territories included Russia. The Mongol Empire was made up of khanates such as the Kipchak Khanate, Golden Horde, and Ilkhanate. The letter Han, used for Khan, means sweat, but actually means king in Old Korean. The philosophy behind the character Han in the name of our country, Daehan, initially came from Samhan of Donggun Joseon. If we really trace it back, it goes back 9,000 years, all the way to Hwanguk. Say it. Let Hanguk return to Hwanguk. There's more. The Liao Empire of the Khitan, the Jin and Qing empires of the Jurchen also were built on the Samsin cosmology handed down from Donggun Joseon. When Abaoji of the Khitan founded the Liao, he set up 5 capitals in his empire, which was a system based on Samsin Oj philosophy. The Jin was established in the 12th century by Akuta. His descendant Nurhaci founded later Jin in the 17th century. Shenyang was Nurhaci's early capital and has his palace. In the palace is Nurhaci's throne, flanked by pavilions on the left and right for the wise kings of the right and left. In the courtyard are 8 pavilions, 4 on each side, which house the so-called 8 banners based on the 8 trigrams. As a general rule, it can be said that Eastern culture is based on the 3-8, an important cultural symbol. The number 8 signifies the culture of immortal sages of Eastern cultures. The Chinese adopted the number 8 as significant. For instance, the 2008 Beijing Olympics began at 8 p.m. on August 8. In cosmic terms, we first have the 4 cardinal and 4 ordinal directions, forming the eightfold framework. All creation and movement in the universe occur in accordance with these 8 directions. Even in daily life, directions, such as where the sun rises and sets, are essential coordinates in space-time. Looking into the roots of the Western nomadic peoples. People in the West place a great deal of importance on the Scythians, the very first of the Western nomads, and consider them precursors of the Huns. Actually, the Scythians were themselves an offshoot of Eastern nomadic culture. Their lifestyle and customs are described in great detail in the histories by the Greek scholar Herodotus. The Scythians were active from 2,300 to 2,800 years ago in the Pontic Steppe, east of the Black Sea in Central Asia. In southern Austria, there is the small town, known for its salt mines. It is called Hallstatt and has a population of about 1,000 people. The money from this mountaintop salt mine was such that it revived Austria from its initial decline. The town is also home to a pretty two-story museum with cultural and historical artifacts from up to 7,000 years ago. One of the signs in the museum says that Scythians built their culture to the east, to the south, and to the southwest of Hallstatt. While it was Celtic cultural zone to the west, Hallstatt was at the crossroad of two cultures, which is reflected in the artifacts on display. For example, a king's sword with a dragon on its tip, a small cauldron carried around by the Huns on their horses, and many artistic patterns that are products of our ternary culture. Let's look at Hungary next. Some Hungarians express shame because they believe Hungary was founded by nomadic savages from the east. They even shorten the history of their country by a couple centuries and say that Hungary is only 1,000 years old. Looking at Europe, we see that Hungary is slightly right of center. It happens to be the center of ternary culture in the West. A museum there contains many artifacts with symbols related to Csonwonji-bang and triangular patterns that signify the human spirit, like these three ducks. One such story is from Japan, and it is mind-boggling. I definitely need to tell you this. The three ducks and a triangle is a relic derived from Cheonbuk-gyeong. This signifies the idea of 3 in 1. The broad expanse west of Austria is the Celtic cultural zone. This zone features artifacts like this, the clearest, most complete example of the ternary culture made into a work of art. Patterns like these three dragons, artifacts like the Triskelion, it's all so amazing and mysterious. A bronze disc with heads of 3 bulls, an artifact with 3 bunches of grapes from the Istanbul Museum in Turkey. Another evidence of worldwide ternary culture, a Kyrgyz folk instrument that exists as a set of 3 in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Zone. In the Heroes Square in Budapest are statues of its founders, and the square is filled with swastika and motifs. In addition, the Hungarian Foundation mythology involves the worship of the sacred bird called Turul, and is very similar to a 3-legged raven here. I was told that they had originally built over 10 giant statues of it, but only 2 or 3 are left. But we got to see the one to the right of the Hungarian royal palace that is still there. Also, every kingdom or a powerful clan in Europe have a coat of arms, a crest, most of which includes the image of 3-legged ravens. They are in the coat of arms of the Holy Roman Empire, and in Catholic images also. These images are transformed into that of an eagle, as you can see in the coat of arms of Romania and the USA. The Westerners would often say nasty things like, "The nomads of the East are half-demon spawns. They are strong and vicious. They must be the scourge of God." One of the European legends that came from this notion is the story of George VI slaying the demon. Here's a picture of that famous legend. In the Xingyo culture of the East, it is fire and water that sustains humanity, and all life in heaven and earth, and bodies of water are ruled by dragons, while fires are controlled by phoenixes,
which is found all over the world.
Samson philosophy and cosmology left its mark in Maya and rest of Mesoamerica also, and even appears in Buddhist motifs in such places as Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, in the lands of southern Theravada Buddhism. Wonder why dokebi, goblins, dragons, and phoenixes appear in Hindu temples? Questions like this must be answered. And when the truth behind the dokebi images is revealed, we truly begin to understand the whole theology and cosmological perspectives of this venerable culture of cosmic radiance. The nomadic culture of North Asia traveled through the Silk Road and spread to the Middle East and Northwest Europe, all the way to Scandinavia. This culture reached Finland, Sweden, Norway, and also to nations like the Netherlands. I remember when I visited Norway about 30 years ago, and I saw this huge totem pole, just like the Korean Jangsung. I was really surprised and thought it was so awesome and amazing. The Viking culture originated with a man named Ivar the Boneless, who is actually a Hun whose bloodlines connect him to Mongolia. A forensic expert named David K. Foe analyzed Viking genes and found that Viking royalty and nobles were all nomads from the east. It was actually proven by genetics. The descendants of Ivar then spread out to Poland, to Norway, and across Scandinavia. Looking into the history of Europe, and more specifically, into its dynastic history, the Austrian Habsburgs married into virtually all royal houses across Europe, linking all of Europe through marriage alliances. They ruled the Holy Roman Empire, which claimed itself to be the heir of Rome. The Germanic Habsburgs were the main actors in European history. Its dynastic history stretched 600 years, on which Austrian Habsburgs left definite footprints. One of those footprints are motifs of dragons and phoenixes. Another Turkish artifact, the Sultan's sword, is adorned with dragon patterns. Then, here's a palace at the foot of the Alps where Empress Maria Theresia stayed in. To the left of the palace is a Catholic cathedral full of larger-than-life statues of Habsburg kings, queen, and nobles. Nearly all of those statues have dragons and phoenixes on them, and likewise for all the ornate armor. It's the same story at the Notre Dame in Paris, which is also full of dragons, phoenixes, and gargoyles. Not that many people have taken a good look, though a lot of people have been there. Everyone just sort of skims over them. As for us, we take pictures of each one and looked closely, like through a microscope. This is the famous Rila Monastery in Bulgaria. Its founder is said to have slept on cold ground and prayed for 7 years until he received a message from the Holy Spirit one day to build it. The monastery is truly a breathtaking sight. The walls to the front of the hallway are filled with colorful and sacred-looking images and drawings. I looked at it carefully and noticed a dragon, then a phoenix. It is full of them. When I came outside, there was a golden phoenix that sort of looked like a water faucet. To my surprise, the dragon phoenix has that familiar orb. It is the same orb found in dragons in the east. In the cosmology of the Eastern Shingyo, the dragon and phoenix represent the sons of heaven and children of God. They symbolize the divine nature of royal authority. There are dragon and phoenix mosaics, even on top of the Vatican, the very center of Christianity. The dragon and phoenix, along with the swastika, are also on the cupola of St. Peter's. The Christians claim that the sun they worship is the Son of God. Yet, during the golden age of humanity, the symbol of sonship happened to be the dragon and phoenix. Are they ignorant of this fact? No, they actually know. Their interpretation of the motifs, however, is an oxymoron. They actually interpret the dragon as the devil. The image of the dragon in the West would undergo changes. Not only were their colors changed, they came to have wings and became fire breathers. They were perverted. This is how they appear in movies, countless legends and stories. The symbolism of the dragon and phoenix became corrupted. The sunbird of holy fire that once had powers over the fires of heaven is turned into a docile dove. It was a lot worse for the dragon, as it became a demon that causes chaos and destroys celestial order, the most visible representative of all evil spirits. In other words, the dragon became the devil in a different form, who brought original sin to the world. Let's just say they are entitled to their opinions. This concludes the general overview of nomadic cultures around the world. So, what is our conclusion about nomadic cultures? It is that this nomadic culture that carried to the rest of the world the culture of cosmic radiance, that encompassed Samson theology of Shingyo, as well as its cosmology and worldview. The main branch of this nomadic culture was the Huns, who in turn originated as the Sanyong. They are one of the four barbarians, Dongyi, Seoyung, Naman, and Bukjuk. In the east were the Dongyi, those who shot from the great bow. In the west are the Sohyung, western barbarians. But there are three distinct groups of Yung. The aforementioned Sanyong is said to be the root of all nomadic cultures of the north, including such tribes as the Hyungno. The Samhan governance system, or the three-realm system of Dangun Joseon, involves having the Dangun in the center, with two kings on the left and right flanks. We can actually find traces of this system among the Huns, who are a part of the culture of cosmic brilliance, and have a supreme leader, the Sun Wu. He is flanked by viceroys called wise kings on the left and right, and the eldest son becomes the wise king of the left, and later assumes the throne. This is a system that is maintained all the way to the last dynasty of nomads, the Manchu Qing. Going back to the Huns, they called their kings the Tengri Godo. A combination of Tengri and Godo, son of heaven, is a notion that was long maintained. Then what does Sunwu mean? It is an abbreviation of Sunwu Chonggang, or Sunwu descended from heaven. The idea of the son of heaven from the three dynasties remained intact among the Huns. Again, Sunwu Chonggang. All nomadic cultures, whether it be the Huns, the Sonbi, or the Turks, all came from a single root. Turkey thus has a ceremony where they declare themselves blood brothers of other countries. There are other countries with similar rituals and share similar flags. There are other interesting facts, like the Sunwu chieftains having their doors face southward when they pitch their tents. When they die, they make sure that their heads are placed in the direction of the Big Dipper, the stars that represent the Samson Sangjanim. In addition, the Huns worship the sun and moon, and there is a fascinating passage in Chinese records about this, that Sunwu goes into the main camp at sunrise to bow to the rising sun, to address the sun. In the evening, he does the same to the rising moon. It is the same ritual that appears in the chronicles of Hwanguk in the Hwangdan Gogi. This is extraordinary. The worship of the sun and moon corresponds to the worship of the dragon and phoenix, who control water and fire, respectively. The dragon and phoenix symbolize sons of heaven and earth, children of God. The dragon and phoenix represent natural deities, and thus are present among the Maya and Native Americans. They are present in Africa also. At the African Museum in Jeju, which is painted in an earth color, is a sculpture of a dragon. In Africa, also, I saw performers there, and they had top knots on their heads.
I was really surprised. How did Samson culture end up in Africa, I thought? Unfortunately, most people regard Africans as savages, but what the examples from Africa would tell us is that human culture is universal, something that we all must ponder deeply.
Not too long ago, there was a declaration that the 9,000-year-old human civilization will be renewed. This is what Donghak calls the new Gebyok. A plague destined for 12 countries, is this not Gebyok again, says the scripture. This goes beyond mere climate change, as accumulated grievances piled up through human history will burst forth all at once, in accordance with the law of conflict, pushing humanity to the brink of annihilation. The dark forces of disparity, conflict, and war will mix together. I mean, all the accumulated contradictions within human civilization will culminate in one spectacular explosion. The Gebyok is coming again because natural law has ordained it. It will be a new Gebyok where 12 countries will suffer the plague. This is the situation, the historical conflict that Sangjamim has come to resolve. The very God of the universe who governs the cosmos and whom the Korean nation has worshipped for 9,000 years. the great hope of the Eastern people that the first Dangun, Wangom, that was kindled here in Gangwa on Chamsungdan altar in Marisan 4,300 years ago, was reignited by the Donghak Eastern learning. On April 15, 1860, Venerable Master Che Je-woo had a direct conversation with God the Sangjenim in heaven, the Dongyong Dejun. Every Korean must know it if they consider themselves Korean, just as we cannot consider ourselves Korean if we do not know the Chonbogyeong. It is knowledge of the declared truth of the Donghak Eastern learning that gives us our real identity as Koreans. The great historical declaration by Donghak is none other than the mantra Venerable Master Choi received directly from God, the Sangjenim, that heralded the new era, the Sichunjuju mantra. By serving the Lord of Heaven, I co-determine the destiny of creation transformation. Samsin Sangjenim is the God humans have worshipped all along, the Lord of Heaven. We are entering the civilization of the Divine Father, and its core message is, we honed the great infinite way, the destiny of 50,000 years. It actually represents a new transition for human civilization. This destiny is not some portent of coming doom. To put this in Buddhist terms, it marks the arrival of a new enlightenment, a declaration of an entirely new universal truth. The coming of He, the Lord of Tusita Heaven, to introduce a new way of spiritual discipline. Simply put, someone is coming who is the Father of all religions of the East and West, the source of all life, the Lord of Heaven. And He is coming here, to this very land. This new era will transcend religions, science, and technology. It will be a civilization of creative transformation enacted by the great harmonizer himself. The new truth of the new civilization is the great way of the infinite. The governing principles of the autumn universe is the Samsin Sangjenim. It is with the Sangjenim, God the Father, the Lord of Heaven, that the way, the great way of the infinite, resides. The Japanese made sure they completely ruined Korean history until they finally left this country in 1945. However, there were millions of Koreans who knew, decades beforehand, of the coming Korean-American alliance, who knew that Americans would drive out Japan and arrive as liberators. Over 6 million people in Korea already had an idea there would be a Korean-American alliance. It was in 1946 that Dr. Seungman Rhee went to the city of Jongeup and made that historic declaration that we should set up a separate government in southern Korea. So why did Dr. Seungman Rhee go to Jongeup? After the Donghak army of 600,000 was destroyed by Japanese rifles and artillery, the Donghak faithful reorganized into the 6 million strong Bocheongyo religion in Jongeup. The 6 million faithful of Jongeup pooled their resources and provided funds that made the independence movement possible. Syngman Rhee was well aware of this fact. Even Kim Gu of the provisional government stated that, "We owe a great debt to Jongeup, to Bocheongyo," as he stepped off the plane. Now for the ultimate historical vision of the Chonbogyeong Iljok Shipgo. The water of the single supreme ultimate became divided and moved toward cosmic summer, having passed through cultural eras marked by 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and is now about to move into the cosmic autumn, into a state of earth over the heaven, like it is symbolized by the Chamsungdan altar.
There are questions that I really want to ask as I look back on the spirit of renewed Gaebyuk.
Just what is the nature of cultural spirit of ancient Joseon? What is the essence of history and culture that runs through minds and veins of Koreans today? For starters, Koreans had with them a trailblazing continental culture that they possessed since the foundation of Hwanguk and Beidel, and the peninsular traits that they developed from being trapped in a peninsula after the fall of Dangun Joseon and Goguryeo. This means that Korean culture is agricultural, nomadic, and maritime cultures fused into a single culture. This leads me to say that the coming unification of Korea represents the start of the Gaebyok civilization and will not be something that is limited to the end of division in the Korean peninsula. It goes beyond unification as it signifies the start of a post-Gaebyok era that will bring together the cultures of the East and West, a grand union of all civilizations on this earth. And this is the essence of the cultural spirit that has survived for 9,000 years, that courses through the veins of each and every person who is a member of the Korean nation, all 82 million of us. My 30 years of traveling, observation, and research has led me to conclude that Dangun Joseon is no myth. The reason Dangun Joseon became a myth is because the history ravagers from Japan and China fabricated and manipulated historical records and produced skewed interpretations. This implanted the notion of a small Korea, a peninsular history, in Korean minds. I mean, like that part of our national anthem that says, "Beautiful land of 3,000 li." We kept singing and singing until we actually believed it. Memorizing and singing phrases like this have brainwashed many of us. Our historical DNA is diseased beyond recognition. Ask yourself whether the history you know is real. Go around the world and find out, and you will know. Becoming a true and upstanding human being, someone who respects their birth parents and attains personal maturity within your true history, is predicated on your knowledge of the divine parents. Someone who achieved a harmonious whole with the divine parents, Father Heaven and Mother Earth, was referred to as the Tail, Supreme One, since Hwanguk and Baedal. This person is called Tail, or Daehan. The legacy of the Tail is actually close to us, in Gyeongbok Palace. Our ancient ancestors actually knew the Tail very well. However, Koreans today did not get to learn about this historical mystery, this truth, from schools, books, or in any culture classes, not even from their parents, even. Not once. There is learning that will allow us to become one with the divine parents, the Taeulju mantra. The creative transformative learning, the learning of the Sichon Juju mantra, was completed by the true heirs of Donghae.
The 23 letters of the Taeulju mantra, which shows cosmic creation transformation, represents a complete form of this learning.
I hope the session today becomes an event where renewed Gaebyok happens, that we are reborn as people of Daehan. It is through the spirit of Gaebyok we will find the true historical spirit of Korea. I end this session by expressing my sincere hope that this lecture becomes our own Gaebyok, where history of cosmic radiance and the original history of Hwanguk, Baedal, and Joseon is restored. Thank you.
We only had one Dangun. We now know there were many and learned about other things as well.
In listening to our true history through the Hwandan-gogi, I now know that it wasn't myth, but real history. It is great that he got to hold an event like this, right here in Gangwon, where Dangun's history lives.
I really love the Hwandan-gogi. Everyone must get to know our history, and especially our true history. I really enjoyed the Hwandan-gogi lecture. That was truly satisfying. Thank you.
I have come back to Gangwon many times, but I was here in Gangwon today for the sole purpose of attending the book concert. I have to say, it was truly a memorable session. I am truly grateful.